Hello everyone. So in this session, we are going to see the implementing security and validating code base for compliance. So this is the last module actually. So today our agenda is so first of all, we are going to see the basics of the cloud security because so in our Azure DevOps, right? So whatever the demo we have seen so far, so most of the things we have deployed in the Azure. Okay, so that we need to know so how we have to secure the cloud environment and also. So that we will be covering in the cloud security and then the application security and which means so what are all the source code base is there and maybe how to scan the source code base and what are the tools are available and also even after deploying into the some of the cloud environment, so how to validate that, so those things and then the code quality. And apart from that, we are going to see how we are going to enforce them. So for example, so we know these are all the best practices, but how we are enforcing those rules in the Azure DevOps, because there are many tools, right? So maybe in the subsequent session, maybe slide you will be understood. Okay, so first of all, so we'll see the basic, maybe the cloud security, maybe that will be applicable to all of the things so here maybe in Azure, AWS or GCP, right? So most of the things we are using infrastructure as a service or platform as a service and software as a service. Okay, so for example, let's take one example for VM. Okay, so for example, you are deploying some secure application, and so inside the VM, you have installed IAS server, and so from there you are actually hosting your website. Okay, so because it is not inside your data center, it is hosted in somewhere in some other Azure data center, right? So the one of the thing is we have to encrypt the data disk. So for example, for every VM, right? So we will be having the OS disk and then the data disk. So that thing we have to be encrypted. Okay, and then the same scenario for the SQL Server database also. Okay, maybe whatever the interaction we are doing, so maybe the insert, update, delete, so whatever the update and the table, so in behind the scene it will be stored as the MDB and LDB file, and that we cannot see it, but the maybe the Azure team, they will be taking care of it. Okay, but because, right, so even the same SQL server, even they might create the multiple databases for different users. Okay, so that we should encrypt the data. Okay, so that is what first of all, like encrypting data at rest. Okay, so the similar case for the blob storage and even hub, so those and all the micros, the streaming application, right? So it will be storing the messages in somewhere in the system, right? So everything has to be encrypted at the rest. Okay, and here for the encryption, right, maybe you we need to provide some keys. Okay, maybe so sometimes maybe we can leave that responsibility to maybe the Microsoft, so that they will create the they will use their key for the encryption. And if they said no, maybe I don't want the full control about the encryption, so in those scenario you can give the customer managed encryption key, and then they will be encrypt the particular the information, the sensitive information. Okay, and then the in transit means, so for example, maybe for the SQL server. Okay, the server is deployed in some other location, and then you are accessing the SQL database from your local machine through the SSMS client. Okay, so in those scenario, so during the transit, right, so between the network traffic, so it has to be encrypted. So during the transit also it has to be encrypted, so that middle of the man attack, if someone is trying to access the maybe the packet you are sending from client to server, so at the time if the data is encrypted, so that they cannot see anything. Okay, so that the first important thing is we need to encrypt the data at rest and then in transit. Okay, so Amos and Mebrat, so do you have any query on this?
No, sir.
Yeah. So and then the next one is like all the resources should be created within the virtual network. Okay. So for example, maybe Amos and Mibrad, so you can confirm with me, like earlier, right? We have created the AKS cluster and then SQL database. So have we created within the virtual network or outside of the virtual network? So I think mostly, yeah. So maybe this is the concept is new, the virtual network. So mostly, right? So we have deployed the outside of the virtual network. So maybe we have created within the virtual network, but still, right, we have exposed over the public endpoint because, right. So for example, we have to create the AKS cluster and then we need to access the AKS cluster from the public endpoint only. Okay, because there is no other way. But in the company scenario, right, so what they will do is like, for example, you are working in some Microsoft or any other organization. Okay, so they will be having the virtual network. Maybe you will be connecting the VPN, and after that you will be accessing all of the internal portal, right? So what they will do is like they will pair the on-premise network with the cloud network. Okay, so at the time what it will happen is like your database or the Kubernetes cluster, right? So you can't be accessed outside of your network, which means if you're not connected to the VPN, then you won't be able to connect it. Okay, so otherwise, right, so for example, if you are created publicly, at the time what it will happen is like even anyone in the internet, they can just maybe they can just hit the particular endpoint. Okay, so it maybe even so that also giving one more chance for maybe hacking our application, right? So if you are not at all exposing to the internet, then our application is very much safe. Okay, so you got this point, right, Amos and my bro?
Yeah. So when we created the application, right, like before, so it's all like wide open. There
Yeah,
is
correct.
nothing
Yeah.
like secured or anything.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So because right, maybe even you can do one thing, maybe Amos. So for example, right, you can limit the IP range. So for example, currently, maybe that IP range can be changed for us, right? So for example, maybe whenever we are changing the internet service provider, or I think they will periodically they will change the IP address also. Okay, so what's the one thing we can do is like maybe we can whitelist our public IP there, or we can provide the public IP range. Okay, so then what they will do is like whenever the incoming request is coming from the particular public IP, at the time only they will be allow the request. Okay, but still it's not the maybe the company perspective, right? So they won't prefer it.
Mhm.
So they will create within the virtual network only, so that whenever you are connected to the VPN, then only you can access the particular resource.
Say for example, like if you have a website, right, like and then the that is like a thin client, we can say, and all the event actions, everything is going to be on a API. So that API will be within the virtual network, but the website will be on a public, right?
Yeah, maybe for example, currently in your scenario, right? So there is a API application and then another one is the web application. Okay, so for example, no one is going to consume the API application outside of your company. Okay, the only your websites only going to access it. Okay, in those scenario, yeah, yes. So within the virtual network only the API will be accessed, and then the website it will be hosted outside.
And then on the API part, on the virtual network, that's what like we are going
Yeah.
to whitelist the IP
Mm.
address, right? Like
Yeah. So
from where the
mostly, yeah,
website is
mostly,
coming.
yeah, mostly. I mean, so for example, right, you can maybe instead of comparing with API and then website, you can compare with one website, okay, and then the database, okay. So the database we don't need to be exposed outside of the maybe the network, okay, because even the database and then web application server, right, it is in the same network, so that the server only going to access the database, so that as it is in the same network it can access it, but no one needs to access the database from outside of the network, so that we can restrict the public access to the database. So only the endpoints will be exposed outside of the network actually, because sometimes, right, so for example your client is not within your network, so that you have to expose it. Okay, if it is the internal application, so then even you don't need to expose outside also, the web application also you don't need to expose outside.
Only that particular port will be open for the
No,
website,
no,
right?
it's not like a particular port, so you won't be enable any kind of public IP address. If you're not enabling any public IP address, then it won't be exposed outside, right? Maybe the port is like
Mhm.
from the application server level, right? So in which port all the inbound and outbound it has to happen, so the port is for that one only. Okay, but maybe public and private means like whether you are enabling it or not. So if you are enabling it, you need the public IP, so that for your application the public IP will be assigned.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so and so for example,
So,
yeah, yes my brother.
so how do you say you when you open like public, which is like when you create the virtual network, it will be public. But then how do you without encryption? One way is like encrypt trace or transit, but how do you protect the exposure of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
internet?
yeah,
Like using this TLS version 1.2 or
yeah, yeah, everything,
what
my
is the
friend,
option?
yeah, so everything whatever we are talking here, right, so everything we have the
Mm,
property in the Azure services. Okay, but whether
mhm,
you have to enable the particular checkbox or not, so that is the only one thing. But I think we are not, so for example, right, a Kubernetes cluster we have created. Okay, so for example,
mhm.
we don't need to do any kind of configuration, but maybe there will be some properties, so whether you want to allow within the network or outside of the network, so those property only we have to be enabled. So for example, I will go to Kubernetes cluster. Okay, yeah, so maybe one of the property here, right, Mebrat, so the node pool OS disk encryption. Okay, so whether you want to enable the property or not, so whether you can leave it as the default so that the key may be managed by the Microsoft, or you can provide your key, so that so for example, right, the node pool means it's obviously one of the virtual machine. Okay, so the virtual machine, definitely the OS disk and all, it will be attached, right? So whether the particular details you need to be encrypt or not. Okay, so for the encryption you can use any one of those, like encryption maybe you can provide the default, so that you don't need to provide any kind of managed key, so that Microsoft will take care of the keys and keys rotation and encryption everything. Okay, and if you want to have a full control, then you can provide your managed key, so at the time you need to create your own encryption the key, and then you have to provide it here. Okay, so this is the one property. Okay, so for example the networking, so here in the networking, here it is saying like enable HTTP application routing. Okay, so by default so they are disabling it, so whether you want to enable the HTTP or not, so this is the insecure one, so that you should not allow this one. Okay, so this is the one of the property, and then here, right, under the security, like enable private cluster, so which means like, so far if you are not checking this box, right, so that it will create the Kubernetes cluster without the virtual network. So it doesn't need any virtual network concept here. Okay, so that you have to access the AKS cluster from the internet only. Okay, so for example, if I'm checking the box, right, I need to provide the virtual network information, so that within the virtual network only this one will be accessed. Okay. Mebrad, so you are clear on this. So for
Yes.
example, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything it is just like the property only, Mebrad. Okay, because right, this is the platform as a service. We are not going to do any kind of installation, configuration, anything. Okay, but they will be already it is configured already. So whether you want to enable it or disable it. Okay, so that is based on our need. Okay, so for example, if I am not checking this box, it is means like public cluster. Okay, the public cluster means you have the one more. The security concepts like you can uh, filter the IP ranges. Okay, so I'm just clicking on it, and you can provide the IP ranges here, so that even so it will be wide open, but still it will allow the connection only from my IP only. For example, let's say my IP is okay, so let's tell maybe for an example like this is my current IP. Okay, so if I'm enabling it, so still it is available outside of maybe wide open, but from this, if any of the incoming request coming from this IP only, they will allow. Otherwise, they will just ignore it. Okay.
So what is the difference like between private cluster is like still it's specific, right?
Yeah. So
Same thing if here also you are providing like a specific IP only.
yeah. So
So what would be the difference then?
okay. So for example, right, the portal.azure.com, if they have maybe installed in the private cluster, you can just assume it. Okay. So even you cannot even from the website or anything, even you cannot hit the particular endpoint because it won't be available over internet. Okay, but if it is the private cluster, sorry, if it is the private cluster, yeah, you cannot hit the particular endpoint. Okay, if the portal.azure.com is the public cluster, you can hit the endpoint, but they won't take any action. So because they will just block the your connect, block your request.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's who is
Yeah,
private.
yeah. No, no. So this
Okay.
is the yeah, yeah. So for example, if it is the private, even you cannot maybe you cannot hit the particular endpoint because it's not exposed in the internet, because within your
Mm-hmm.
uh, internal network only you can hit the particular endpoint. Okay, if it is the public endpoint, anyone in the internet, right, they can just hit the public IP. Okay, even the maybe even they don't need to be like the real time user. Even anyone in the internet, they can just hit the particular endpoint, and then they can make the system something slow. Okay, and in those scenario, so for example, you can just provide the so if the request is coming from the particular IP, then you can allow this request. So something like you can set it up. Okay, but still it is not the secured one, right? Even if you're maybe even we cannot say, right, so this is the IP always allocated to me, because even because we are connecting from local, but the IP also it will be rotated based on the maybe the internet service provider and all, so that we should not provide any maybe hard coded IP here. So now you understood, right, the private cluster and then the public cluster.
So you are saying the IP might be it might vary.
Yeah, it might be changing method. So for example, right, you are connected to Wi-Fi router. Okay, so maybe anyway you also will have some public IP, but that will be changed always. It won't be the static one. Okay, so that is not the good
Then
practice here, right?
okay. So then that it will come like with a why then how we have to specify here then
Yeah, so
if
then in this
it's
case, right,
changing.
yeah, in this case, right, uh, so you have to go with the private cluster only. Then you don't need to provide any kind of the public IP or anything, so that it is secured within the virtual network, so that no one from the outside of the network they cannot access it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So and then the next one is like so the web app should be exposed within yeah. So this is texted something wrong. So for example, right, if there is anything like web apps, web application, okay, if you are hosted using the AKS or the app service, what we have to do is like we have to be so for example, if you want to expose in the internet, okay, so for example, this application may be used by the outside of the maybe the network users, okay, so in those scenario you have to be protect with the web application, sorry, application gateway, and inside that application gateway there is something like web application firewall, okay, so for example, so that you won't directly provide your application service endpoint to the users, okay, so you will be provided through the web application gateway and then web application firewall, so that maybe even the firewall there you can set up some kind of maybe configuration like so if the maybe you can set it up some kind of the throttling, everything you can set it up there. So for example, right, even so the from the Microsoft Azure dot, so the portal.azure.com, so I'm just running some automation script to do multiple requests within a second or something, okay, so in those scenario the web application firewall and all, they will be having the capability to the throttling, the limits, so everything they can be specified so that it is somewhat it would be secured actually, okay, and then the databases should not be exposed over internet, okay, so for example, yeah, anyway the web application we need to be exposed, but the database we don't need to expose to over the internet, so within your network only the database and web apps will be there, so that so that it can communicate within the internet, and the web application only it will be exposed to over the internet actually, so that the database we don't need to be exposed to over the internet, so that otherwise, right, so someone maybe they can steal our information, but still they need the username and password, but at least they can try some kind of hacking algorithm or the procedure, so that still it is somewhat possible, right, so that we should not allow, we should not they expose the database over internet, okay, so which means like this one also it has to be in the virtual network only, okay, and then need to use HTTPS with the TLS version 1.2, okay, so this is for the so for example, you know, right, the HTTPS for the secure the communication between the sender and receiver, okay, even in that one, so whether we are using the which protocol version like TLS version 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, okay, I think currently the maybe the most of them, right, so they are using the TLS version 1.2 because there are some other possibilities for the security attacks in the TLS version 1.1, okay, so that wherever it is possible we have to use the TLS version 1.2 or the higher version, okay, and then the secret key should not be added into the source code or in the build, okay, so for example we are already checked in our the code in the git repository, right, we should not be add any kind of the keys or secret inside the git repository, okay, and also in the build also we should not specify it like when we are doing the build, right, at the time also we should not be inject inside the build, but earlier we have used those things only, but this from the security point of view, right, so that we have to store all the secrets and keys in the Azure Key Vault, and from there only your application it has to pull the secrets, okay, even if there is any kind of the even if there is any chances if someone steal the information, you can just change the you can just update the keys or the password there, so that it will be immediately updated in the all the places, okay, so so this is the one, and then like RBAC access, so this is the role based the control access, right, so that so within your team, right, so there can be many roles like you may be the project manager and developer tester, so you have to provide always the least privileged access, so that we can maybe even the accidental delete, so when they don't need any kind of the contributor access, so you should not provide it, otherwise, right, there is some chances for the deleting the resource or maybe the maybe starting restarting or stopping the application, so that we can avoid the unwanted situations. Okay, so that we have to provide the least privilege access to all of them. So we have to ensure always the every user should have the least privileged access only, it's not the maximum one. Okay, and then this is for the just in time access for the administrative task. Okay, I think from the active directory, from the Azure active directory, they have some features and all, like so for example, if you are maybe log into the DB server or production DB server or some of the important servers, right? So no one should have the permanent access. Instead of that, they should be granted only allow within the 10 minutes or 15 minutes or the 30 minutes of time frame. And then once they have completed the particular task, so that they should be so automatically the access will be revoked, so that it's still, so that it will be somewhat secure actually. Okay, so that we have to use the just in time access for the administrative related tasks and all. Okay, and so even here, right, the private, and so there are some so here, right, use private endpoint to connect securely from virtual network to Azure resources. Okay, so for example, now you are connecting the AKS cluster. Okay, so the web traffic, right, which is going from over the internet only. Okay, now you are saying like within the virtual network. So for example, within your virtual network you have the database and then the application service. Okay, so when both trying to maybe the connect it, so at the time still, right, it will be the request and all, it will go over the internet only, but still the TLS version 1.2, but still it is secure, but still the communication between the app service and then the database, right, if both are in the different data center data region, at the time it will go over the public internet only. Okay, so for that scenario, maybe if your application contains very sensitive information, at the time you can use the private endpoint. So for example, right, the private endpoint means the Microsoft, they will have the uh, they will have the specific the Azure backbone network within their data center. So for example, the East US, West US, right, so they will be having the private network connection between the both data centers, so that similar like, right, so they will interconnect all of the data center with the their own private network. Okay, so that even when we are initiating any connections, so it has to, so it will go through the private network connection, so the private link, so it won't be go to the whatever we are trying, right, so it will go to the internet service provider and then some other gateway, and then finally it will go to the East US and all. Okay, it won't be like that. If you are choosing the private endpoint, so it will be so they will be the Microsoft, they will have the backbone network, so it will be interconnected with all the networks, so that it will be very much secure actually. Even your request is already secured with the encryption in transit, and also it is not going the public gateway, so it is going the private gateway within the Azure backbone network. So this one also one of the best practices. But when you are using the private link and all, right, so that we maybe we need to incur some charges also for this one. Okay, so Amos and Mibrat, do you have any queries?
No, sir. That was
Yes, sir.
elaborate.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, teams. Yeah. So this is what. So for example, whenever you are creating any resources in the Azure, right? So that we have to. So these and all somewhat maybe the general kind of guidelines. So Mebrat and Amos, okay, so that maybe if it is the database, what should do, if it is the web application, what you should do, and maybe if it is the very sensitive information the application is handling, so at the time what you need to do. So for example, the private endpoint, the role based access, so those and all you need to be care. Okay, so this is all about the infrastructure related one. So maybe not, we cannot say like infrastructure, maybe the deployment perspective, right, so we are creating the cloud resources, so that you need to be make sure these are all the best practices. Okay, but the same similar concepts also will be applicable to the AWS also. but this is the general guidelines, like the encryption and then the private endpoint and then the web application, the database. So all the things, right, it is the generic one, so that you can easily correlate with the other cloud as well. Okay, so this is about the cloud security. And then the next one, right, yeah, so for example, right, we have created so above policies. Okay, so for example, here we have, so for example, so here we have seen, right, for example, in my organization, like encrypted data at rest, and then it should be encrypt so during the transit also it has to be encrypted. Okay, so this is the general policy. So whatever the maybe the resources we are creating, right, so that maybe that one needs to be comply with the policies. So how we can ensure them? Okay, so for example, in the organization wide and all, right, so there can be many Azure subscription, there can be many project, there can be many resources. Okay, so in this scenario, so how we can enforce the maybe the policies and audit and compliance? Okay, so whether all of them are they are compliant to the particular guidelines or not. So this is what, so we are going to achieve with the Azure Security Center. Okay, so for example, maybe here the Azure Security Center, one of the service from Azure. Okay, so with that you can actively monitor your cloud and as well as the on-premise the data center resources. Okay, so here if there is any non-compliant status, everything you can be see in the Azure Security Center. Okay, so for example, right, in the cloud also there can be many roles. Okay, you can be the developer or architect, and also the security architect also. Okay, so mostly the security architect, right, so they won't be working with any of the other resources directly, so they will be working with the Azure Security Center. Okay, so for example, they will be creating some policies, and then they will assign the policy to maybe the resource group level or the subscription level. Okay, so automatically, right, so if there is any non-compliant the status of particular services, they can get the details in the subscription level. Okay, maybe in the Azure Security Center, right, so they can see like okay, so maybe this is the subscription A, and inside that they are having one database, but they are not doing any kind of encryption. So those kind of the non-compliant status, they can see it in the Azure Security Center. Okay, so for example, this is about the policy, like, right, so whatever earlier we have seen, so those and all we can be creating as the policy in the Azure, and we can be assign the policies to any kind of maybe the subscription or the resource. Okay, but most of the time, right, these are all the built-in policies that is already provided by the Microsoft. Okay, but if you want to make some kind of the custom policies, yeah, we can create that one. Okay, so this is the, so for example, the policy, one of the policy example is like the sensitive information, it should be the encrypted in the transit. Okay, so this is the one of the policy. Okay, and then the initiative means like maybe you can group the number of policies and then you can assign it to the particular subscription. Okay, so for example, in your organization also, right, so they will be having the many kind of the data classification. Okay, maybe it could be like sensitive, and then the restricted, confidential, public, internal. So they will be having the many kind of the data classification pattern. Okay, and then so for each pattern, right, maybe you can create some kind of initiatives. So maybe, yeah, you can create the set of policies, and then you can group it under the initiative, so that instead of assigning every the policy from one to maybe, right, so for the policy to resource group, maybe if there is 10 policy, means it is complex to assign those and all. Okay, so instead you can group the policies, the set of policies, and then you can group it under the initiative, and then you can assign it, so that it will be easy to manage. So which means like the group of policy, it is called the initiatives. Okay, and then the assignment is like you are going to assign you are going to assign the policy and initiatives to maybe the scope, something like resource group level or the subscription level or the resource level also. So this is about the assignments. You are assigning the policy and the initiatives to any one of the resource group or the subscription or the managed groups. So this is about the assignments. Okay, and then the advanced threat in protection. Okay, so they will be saying like the cloud defender also. So for example, right, every resource you are creating it, okay, you can enable the advanced threat protection for the particular resource. Okay, so what they will do is like they will monitor our application, and then our so whether we are missing any kind of the security guidelines. So the threat protection or the cloud defender, right, it will monitor our application, and if there is any performance is needed, it will just show some recommendations. So that is also one of the service provided by the Microsoft. So that is the advanced threat protection, or you can say like the cloud defender, or maybe they are changing the name recently to Azure Cloud Defender. So earlier the security advisor it was there, but the concept is this one, advanced threat protection. So for example, even if you are creating the SQL Server or the AKS anything, you can enable the advanced threat protection for the particular resource, so that if there is any maybe chances for the improvement in security perspective, so it will be show some recommendations so that we can do that. So that one also one of the service provided by the Microsoft. Okay, and then the resource log. So maybe this is something easy only. It's maybe whenever you are creating any resources, right, from the from the left side, you will be having like resource log, which means like if anyone maybe if someone there is a chance for accidentally deleted, right, so that if you are log the resource, so that no one can't maybe delete the particular resources actually. Okay, so this is about the resource logs. And yeah, so whatever we are seeing here, the best practices, right, so for every maybe the guidelines we can be created as the policies, and then we can group the policy as the initiatives, and then we can assign it to the subscriptions. Okay, and yeah, and then if you want, we can enable the threat protection also. Okay, so for example, I'm going to so I'm going here. So for example, I'm going to Azure policy. Okay, so okay, so here what I'm doing is like I'm just searching what are all the policies there. Okay, so for example, for this one you have to click on the definitions. Okay, but here you can say like you can select the particular one, maybe the VM you can select. Okay, so VMs and all, it will be comes under the compute, right, so you can select the compute. And here okay. Okay, so here, right, the I have selected the VM here. Maybe you can select the Cosmos DB or the SQL, Kubernetes, anything you can select it here. Okay, so these are all the policies available currently. So for example, here something like if you have a virtual machine without configuring any disaster recovery. So for example, you have created the virtual machine. Okay, so what they will do is like to maybe for the disaster recovery, the similar set of configuration, they will be creating the VM in the another data center or another region. Okay, so this is what they will be saying like the disaster recovery. Okay, and then yeah, so here, right, OS and data disk should be encrypted with a customer key. Okay, if for example, right, you are created one virtual machine, but you are not enabling the encryption. Okay, so in those scenario it will say like maybe in the particular resource is not compliant with the particular policy. Okay, so for example, what I'm saying is like I'm going to assign the one policy now. Okay, uh, assign policy, maybe the policy definition. So we have to choose the policy definitions. built in. And then so there are actually Microsoft, they are providing around the 873 policies. Okay. And here you can search virtual machine. Okay. You can say maybe otherwise, right? Encryption also we can search. Yeah, so here virtual machine should encrypt temp disk caching and the data flows between compute and storage. Okay, so I think maybe I'm just choosing this one. Okay, and I'm selecting the particular policy, and then we need to assign it to some other scope, right? The scope is something like you can select the scope at the subscription level, or you can select at the resource group level also. Okay, so that I am just choosing at the subscription level. Okay, I'm just selecting it, and then maybe if you want some comments you can do that. And here, right, so for example policy enforcement, which means like even if any if when they are creating the new VM, right, if they are not enabling the disk encryption, it won't allow the creating the resources also. Okay, so for example after enabling the policy, and if anyone is creating the new virtual machine in this subscription in this Azure subscription, and if the virtual machine is not encrypted, means they won't allow you to create it. So for example, right, whenever you are click on the create, it will first validate that one, so whether it is matching all the expectation. So in those scenario it will check the policy also, and then it will say like the resource creation is denied, so we cannot create something. Okay, so for example I will just create this one. Maybe yeah, we can create a one. So maybe you are clear with now, right? Amazon Mebron. So for example, yeah, we can just try to create one virtual machine, and then we'll see. And here, right, I think in the assignments there are totally 5 assignments. Three here. I just want the policy assignments. So this is the one we just created, right? Uh, yeah. Okay, the remediation. Okay. So for example, this is enabled now. I'm going to create a new resource. Virtual machine. So for example, here I am just saying some random name. Okay, availability skill set. So this is the image. Okay, and then the select VM size. I will. Okay, by default it is created some size, so that is fine. And then SSH. Okay, and then port 22. And then here, right, inside the disk it is asking whether we can I think encryption type, right? I think it is already choosing this one. Yeah, I think here there is no option. I think by default, right, they are creating the encryption using the platform managed key. So for example, what we can say, like maybe all our encryption should be use the customer managed key. Okay. uh, New VM. So that is what we are going to try here. Okay, Amos and my brother. So my brother and Amos, so are you clear, right? So what we are trying now? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, it was on mute.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So here assignments. I will select the customer managed key. Okay, maybe we can just check with SQL Server. Okay, I will enable this policy SQL Server. Okay, so it has to be encrypted with the customer managed keys. Okay. So for example, here name, I'm going to create a new server, and then is the US SQL authentication. Yeah, here admin, and then yeah. So here it is coming, right? Want to use this one? No, this is fine. Data backup, locally redundant. So here network, we are not going to change anything. And then the security, okay, data source, database condition, maintenance. You know where it is having the encryption, mm, transparent. Okay, transparent data encryption encrypts your database backups log without any changes to your application. Okay, so here, right? So it is enabled, but I think we are not choosing encrypted connection TLS version 1.2. Okay, I think here they are having the whether we need to use the service managed key or the customer managed key. Okay. So for example, as per our organization policy, we should use the customer managed key. Okay. But I am leaving it to service managed key, so that because we are not going to provide any kind of key set and all. Okay. But if I am providing, if I am selecting the customer managed key, I need to provide the key and all. So I think what is the key? It has to use it for the encryption. Okay. But we are just going to test the policy, right? So I'm just going to select the service managed key. Okay. And I'm clicking on apply.
What is the difference,
Yeah.
Selvan, between this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
service managed
Okay. So the
and
service
customer
managed key
managed?
means for example, the encryption, you need the key, right? Okay. The key will be managed by the Microsoft itself. Okay, because you don't need to care about anything like a key rotation, expiration, or anything. You don't need to care about that, because the Microsoft itself at rest they will encrypt with you with their own encryption key. Okay, that is about the service managed key. Okay, the customer managed key means customer means us. Okay, so we will be creating the key, and then we will be providing the key to them, so that with our key they will encrypt the data sets and all.
Mhm.
Okay, so now
So
you,
which one is really privacy,
yeah. So which one?
secure
Yeah. So
privacy?
the customer, the both of them are secured only, Mebrat. Okay, like platform managed key and then customer managed key. But still, we are not maybe in the very sensitive maybe data, right? At the time, we won't give the maybe the encryption key used by the Microsoft. At the time, we will be owning the full data control. So, for example, if the Microsoft is owning the keys and all, right? So even as per their privacy policy, they won't look our data, but still there is a chance. Okay, but if we are created using the customer managed key, within only us only we can see, we can decrypt the data, and then we can see what it is in there. So even in the, if you are using the service managed key, even the Microsoft can see the data, but even they won't do that. But still, I'm saying, so at least because they only having all the keys and all, right. At least there is some possibilities of seeing the data by Microsoft. Our data they can see it. Okay, but if you are using the customer managed key, they cannot see any because we only will have the private key and all. So with our private
Right.
key sets only, we will be decrypt the data. Okay,
Okay. Got it.
yeah. So that is about the difference. Okay, and then here, if I think we have to configure the ledger. Maybe I will just choose some default. Okay. Mm, okay, I think we have to create some storage account too for this one. The value must not be. I think the before that, I think we need to have some storage account. Okay, I'm just trying to create, but it won't allow us to create because we are using the service managed key. I think still it is validating. think it is taking some time. Actually, still it is validating it. I think maybe my Wi-Fi connection is low. So team, you are able to hear me, right? Amos and my broad.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
Can you take a break and come back
Yeah. Sure.
while waiting?
Amos. Yeah. I think
Okay,
of yeah.
I'll be back.
Okay, member. So here, right? So whenever we are maybe creating any new assignment for assigning some policy or initiative to some resource group, so it will take about 30 minutes or 15 minutes some time actually for evaluation and all. Okay, so immediately after some time, so we cannot try it. So what you can maybe try is like maybe currently, right? So I have said like the Kubernetes service private cluster should be enabled. Okay, so for example here, right, I am not enable the private cluster. Okay, but when I am trying to create with this state, so it will throw error like we cannot create the Kubernetes the public cluster. Okay, but for the policy assignments, right, so it will take some time, so that we are not able to verify it. Maybe in your subscription, right, so you can verify later. Okay, because the policy assignments, it will take some time. Okay. Abroad and also any doubt on the policies initiatives in this one?
So you are saying later we can see it after
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
if it's created
No,
or not.
no. So you can maybe for example, right, I will just created the policy, right, maybe at the end of the session we can try to create that one, maybe whether it is reflected or not. But I think here yeah, so I think for the complaint scans occurs every 24 hours. A new policy or new assignment initiative assignments take about 30 minutes to be applied. New or updated source within a scope of an existing alarm becomes available in about 15 minutes. Yeah, basically it will take some time, so that's why we are not able to see here. Even whenever we are creating the cluster, right, without the checking the enable private cluster, it is saying like the validation is successful. Okay, so actually the final validation should be failed because we are not enabling the private cluster. So you understood, right, what I'm saying? Yeah, so I think now, right, I think now it is working. Yeah, so here you can see, right, Mebrod. So I think it is taking some time. Uh, so now you can see like a resource demo was disallowed by policy. Uh, Private Azure Kubernetes service private cluster should be enabled. Okay, so here the reason also, please create the private Kubernetes cluster. So that I have provided here, like the complaints message, right, I have provided here. Non-compliance message, I think here I have provided, I think it's not showing now. So here I have typed, right, like please create the uh, maybe the recent changes it is not taking, but the previously I have provided the non-compliance message, right, so that's what it is
Right.
showing here. Okay, yeah, this is how we can enforce the policy on the resource creation method. Okay, the similar way, right, so you can add the policies like I have to create the resources only in the East US region. So those kind of things also you can create that, those kind of policies you can set it up in the Azure policy actually. Okay, so Amos and Mebrad, so you are good with this one, right, the Azure policy one?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next one, okay, team. So this is about the audit and compliance, like how the policy and then initiatives and assignments, and then the threat protection. We are just once we are creating the resources, right? We are just enabling the property so that the Microsoft will monitor the all the communication, and if there is any chances for the security improvements, so then it will do. Okay, and the resource lock, so as I said already, so it will prevent do the accidental deletion, so that maybe whoever created the lock, right, so they only can unlock it, and after that only they can delete the resource, or if there is any modification on that. Okay, so the next one is like application security and code quality. Okay, I think that this topic we already discussed, like maybe one of the code quality or some session. So the SAST means like the static application security testing, like it will take our source code as the input, and then the each the scanning tool, right, it will have the client one. So for example, the checkmarks means the checkmark server one will be there, and then the checkmarks client, all the checkmark scanner also will be there. Okay, so what it will do is like maybe we will run some particular command, and it will zip the particular code base, and then it will send it to the server, and then it will analyze all the maybe the code, and then it will show the metrics basically. Okay, and this is about the static application security testing. So this is just taking the source code as the input, and then it is showing like so some example, like for example, the from the developer point of view, right, they are printed some important logs. So for example, you can assuming it like so you are creating some payment gateway application. Okay, so for example, the developer maybe without knowingly they are printed some maybe amount, and then the user ID column and all. Okay, so those and all we should not print in the console, right? If you are printing in the event viewer or any kind of log means, so anyone can see it, so that we should not maybe print any of the sensitive information in the log. Okay, and then the SQL injection, maybe the if there is any possibilities for the attack, then the maybe from the check marks or the 45 tool, right, it will display us. So it will display like so these are all the maybe the logging, so you have to comment it, so because you are printing the sensitive information. Okay, and then here like the open source security. So for example, if you are taking the if you are taking the .NET, Java or JavaScript, anything, right? So mostly we will be downloading the maybe the third-party libraries, and then we will be using in our application. Okay, but if we are creating within our organization, we can use all the libraries and all. Okay, but whenever we are trying to download it from the internet, we need to think like whether it is license compliant or not. So for example, sometimes, right, they will be providing the free tier for the 1 month, and then they will ask us to charge it, and some of the time, right, we don't know whether the current the proper maintainer is there for the particular library or not, and then we don't know whether the code is maybe the library is created with the best practice or not, and then like whether is there any current open security vulnerability is present in the library. So in all the aspect, right, so we have to analyze all the third party library components. Okay, so in this scenario only the black duck and white source, so those things and all will be coming into the picture. Okay, and so this is just basically it will just to see what are the third party or the library, the dependencies we are using it, and then each version we are using it here, right, whether is there any proper maintainer is there, and is there any open security vulnerability is there, and whether the license compliant, so whether as a company we can use the like the dependency or not. So those in the perspective it will show the report. Okay, and then the dynamic application security testing, and here maybe the OWASP and then Rapid7. So once you have deployed your application to the deployment platform like Azure App Services or Kubernetes platform, right, at the time at the time you will be having the endpoint, right? So for example, we are accessing the particular endpoint using the browser. Okay, so what we can do is like we will just providing the URL, okay, with the all the authentication credentials, and basically what the tool it will do is like it will crawl all the open links and pages in the application, and then it will display the, so it will basically do all the possible security attacks. So maybe from so far, right, whatever the security attack is present in the internet, it will try to simulate all the operation, and then it will do the security report, and so that we can say like maybe the SQL injection is possible or cross-site scripting that issue is possible. So those kind of details we can see it here. So from the dynamic application security testing. Okay, and then the next one is like the code quality, and the code quality, like the most popular tool is like SonarQube. Like it will show like the duplicates, code coverage, and then is there any open bug or not. And then here also, right, from the SonarQube also it will display some security vulnerabilities related issues also, but it is not mainly for the security scanning. Okay, but even the code, the SonarQube also, for some extent, it will maybe find the security vulnerabilities also, but this is fully for the code quality. But other the SAST and then check marks and all, right, this is mainly for the maybe the security vulnerability scanning only. Okay, but mostly, right, that what the company will do is like they will use the SAST and then the code quality. Okay, like the SonarQube 45 or the SonarQube check marks. So when for sometimes, right, the SonarQube won't detect the issue, but the check marks will find the security vulnerability. Okay, or otherwise the check marks won't find that one, but the SonarQube will find it. Okay, so when you are using the both the tools, you can we can maybe we can find at least 70 to 80% of the issues, so that our application will be secured maximum level. Okay, so this is what. So and then the next one is like the demo, but most of the things, right, the check mark, but mostly, right, the from the company standpoint, so these are and all the maybe the licensed tool, right? So maybe even they can use some other tool also. Maybe there are many tools, right, even for the SAST. Maybe the cast highlight also one of the tool. Even there are many tools are there, but the when the coming into the integration point of view, so everything is same, but only the tool knowledge we need to know. So how the inside the tool it is there, and how to onboard the project, and what are the properties we need to provide and all. But apart from that, the integration perspective, right, so everything it will be similar only. But it's not like these are the only the tools available in the market, but there can be many tools. But these are all the something that I know, and then it is said in the course curriculum also. Okay, so if you have any queries, yeah, you can ask me now. uh, Amos and Mebrat, so you are good with this one, right? So can we see the SonarQube demo now?
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So team, and then one more thing, right? So for so what are all the components needed? So when you are doing the scan, right, the SonarQube, so what are all the components need is like so for example, you are trying to integrate with Azure DevOps. Okay, the one thing is like you want to check whether the SonarQube the extension is present in the Azure DevOps is not. So if it is not, we have to install the SonarQube extension. Okay, and then the next one is like you need the Sonar server. okay, maybe the SonarQube server unit. So in those scenario, right, so maybe you have the SonarQube utility in the website, you can download it, and from your Windows machine or local or anywhere you can host the Sonar server, okay. Or otherwise, right, even they are providing the image, the SonarQube image also, you can deploy it in the image also, you can deploy it in a container so that you can expose over the internet. And otherwise even they are providing the Sonar cloud also, okay. So you can just log into the Sonar cloud, and there maybe you can create the number of projects you want, okay. So for example, I'm logging to Sonar cloud.
So do they have like a free trial?
Yeah. So for example, if you are using maybe public projects, right? So that there is no limit on that. So if you want to use any kind of private projects, then you need to have some subscription only, Amos.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
but if you are using the public project, I think there is no limitation.
All right.
Okay, so and then my brother, so for example, you have the Azure DevOps, you are having it, and then the Sonar Cube extension also you have maybe you have installed it. Okay, so the next thing is like you need the access token, right? So for example, to connect Azure DevOps and then the Sonar Cube. Okay, so how to maybe then so when you're having the token only, you can authenticate the SonarQube server, right? Because you are going to connect the SonarQube server from the Azure DevOps, okay. From the agent machine only you are going to connect to the SonarQube server. So in those scenario, you need to have the authentication, the token. So how we can get the token is like you can click on the user icon, and then you can go to the my account, and so here under the security you can create the token basically, okay. I think we have created last time, maybe you can create ADO or something, maybe otherwise, right, you can revoke the existing token and then you can create it newly also, okay. So I have created the token now. So and then the next thing, like maybe I want to create the service connection, okay. I'm going to DevOps now. Okay, the first thing I am just making sure that whether the extension is installed or not. So for example, I'm going to, I think, extension at the organization level. I'm going to organization and then clicking on extensions. And here I have already installed, okay. So otherwise, right, maybe if you don't find anything, if you're not installed already, you can go to marketplace and then you can just search SonarQube something, okay. So that from here you can just get it free, and then it will ask for the installation, and then you can do that, because I'm having it already, so that I'm not doing any kind of installation now, okay. So for example, yeah, because this is already installed on this organization, okay. The next thing is like we need to create the service connection. So the service connection means like uh, maybe the URL and then the token details, like so for example, for every time, right, so for example the same SonarQube only you will be using in the multiple pipeline, okay. For every places we cannot provide the keys and all, so we have to store it in some secure manner, right, within the pipeline within the Azure DevOps, okay. So that is the place is like the service connections, okay. And here I have already configured the SonarQube, but I will configure the new one. So this is something like uh, the SonarQube actually. So this is something from that Azure we have created the Sonar server, and then here mentioned the token. But in this scenario, right, what we can do is like we can create the connection for the Sonar cloud. Okay, the Sonar cloud here. Okay, I think the Sonar cloud we have to install the different extensions. Maybe I will uninstall the replace tokens because here also maybe maximum you can install the 5 extensions only. So I think with the free trial, right, we can install up to the 5 extensions. Okay, I think so far 4 only there, right? So I will just search uh, Sonar Cloud. So here it is coming like this is the Sonar Cloud, and then get it free. But sometimes the extension would be cost the licensed one, so that we need to pay for it, and after that only we can get the extension. So I'm saying like this in this uh, organization only we need to install it. Okay, so once I have installed the SonarQube, so I'm going to the launch directly the project, and then here I am going to service connections, and then here I am just searching SonarQube. I think now it will list down. Okay, because earlier the connection is not there, right? But after installing the extension, the Sonar Cloud, the connection type is coming here. Okay, so I will just select this one, and then the Sonar Cloud token is whatever we have just copied there. This is the one we have copied here, right? And this one we need to paste it here, and then I will just say like Sonar Cloud. Okay, so this is the configuration we need. So maybe we can say like grant access permission to all pipelines, okay, within the launch directly, right? If you're having multiple pipelines, so you can just check this one, so that all the pipelines they can access the Sonar Cloud the service connection details. Okay, so I will just click on verify and save. So otherwise, right, yeah, maybe verify and save. So which means like it will just uh, validate the token details, so whether it is correct or not. So if there is any problem with the details, so upon the verification it will fail, so that we have to re-enter the correct details. Okay, so Amos and Membret, so you are clear with this one, right? The Sonar Cloud setup.
Yeah, we'll create an account.
Okay, but yeah, maybe here, right, so the Sonar Cloud, so this is the same UI only will be
Mhm.
this is something the account related information, so you can create the organization something, and then here,
Mhm.
right, you can see the, I think, open projects also. Yeah, I think this is the project I have created maybe very long back,
Okay.
the React one. uh, Okay, and also here we can see the others projects also, like maybe the public projects also we can see it. Yeah, so these are all the public projects. The totally, right, the 2 lakh something public project is
Mhm.
there. So if you're creating a public project, I think there is no limitation, so we can use that. Okay, and so here I'm going to the pipeline. Maybe yeah, we can set it up uh, the SonarQube configuration for the launch directly. The earlier we have the one application, right? That one we can try to do that. Mm, maybe this one I will delete that. So because this is the SonarQube one, I will remove the selected task. So I will add the Sonar Cloud related task. So here something like prepare analysis and then the run code analysis. Okay. So here we are just selecting the Sonar Cloud Service endpoint, and then the organization is like the training, and then the project name, right? So what we can do is like so here we have one dummy project, right? So that one we can use it. So for example, the portal React. So I think this one. Okay, and then the project version, and then the advanced. I think those things. I think, for example, right, in some scenario, for example, you want to exclude some of the files in the Sonar code quality scan. So in those scenario, you can just to provide the path like this. So for example, star star slash uh, maybe the db service.cs. Okay, which means like it will just exclude the particular file from the Sonar code quality scan. Even so, by default, right, it will show like, so sometimes, right, the entity framework and all, the system, the library only will generate the some kind of the class files and all, right. In those scenario we should not modify anything. Even the Sonar code quality gate Sonar code quality tool is saying something wrong with the class. Okay, in those scenario what we can do is like we can just exclude the file here, so that it will be automatically excluded from the Sonar scan. So you got it right.
Mhm.
So this is
Yeah.
about the Sonar dot exclusions. Okay, and apart from that these are all the basic one. And then here they are just running the code quality and run code analysis. Okay, I will just run this one.
Still, what else do you have, Selvan, cover on the syllabus?
This is the final one, almost.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe other things under licensed one. Maybe this is something the general one. We can do the same demo. Almost. So we have seen the policy something, right? So are you at the time, Amos, or maybe you didn't see that one? Like I don't know. Maybe after the
No.
break you see that one or not?
Yeah. No, I came late. Sorry.
Okay, okay.
Maybe I'll read on the
Yeah,
video.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it
So it's simple only, Amos. So for example, right, once we enable the policy, okay, for the particular subscription or resource group, for example, we have tried with, so whenever the Kubernetes cluster we are creating, that should be the private one. So the enable private cluster, so that particular checkbox we need to be checked that one, so that it will be created within the VNet virtual network. Okay, so we have tried without checking the box, so that it is showing like the policy violated some kind of error. Okay, so that it
okay.
won't allow you to create the resources. So in this way you can enforce the policy across your organization. Otherwise, right, there may be multiple subscription, multiple projects, so we cannot go on each and every team we can say like this is how you have to follow. So for this
Mhm.
one we can just generally we can maintain some kind of policies, and then we can just enforce at the subscription level, so that it won't allow them to create the resources if they are violating something. Okay,
Okay.
or sometimes, right, they will be created already, and then we are publishing the policies in late, but it will show like in the Azure Security Center it will show like these are all the services non-compliant to the policy something, so that the security team they can look on it, and then after they can follow up with the application team to the remediation and all. So otherwise, right, we can immediately change the public to private, because there will be many impact, right? So so after
Mhm.
that they will do some plan, and they will slowly migrate the maybe from public cluster to private one.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the thing. So for example, whenever you are creating any kind of integration, right, we have to search whether the extension is there or not, and then mostly it will be there. For example, the policy or the check marks or anything. Okay, like
Mhm.
Veracode. So you will be having the extension. You have to install it, and after that, maybe when you are creating the service connection there, right? So in the particular task, you can just select the particular connection type. Okay, so for example, even you are having the multiple sonar cloud connection, so maybe for the particular sonar task it will ask you which sonar connection type you have to we have to use it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. In this one is taking some time. I think so here it will do the scanning and everything, and finally it will be pushed to the sonar server, the metrics alone, and also Almost you said right. So if there is any doubt, so what you can do is like you can
Mhm.
just send a mail, Amos. Okay. So maybe in this time, I think the Daniel and Asis also. So you can just CC with them, and then you can just send a mail, and then I will help you on that. So if you are stuck on something like Terraform or ARM templates, something, so maybe my
Okay.
brother, so everyone, so you can just send a mail, then I will respond you on that. So if you are stuck on something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, master branch has not been analyzed yet. Okay, here it is saying like it is executed. Here the branch is something like launch darkly. Okay. So and then one more thing also, Amos. So here, right, when we are using the SonarQube server, so it will analyze. We can see the reports for the master branch only. So we cannot see that one for the other branches. So when you are using the licensed version, so you can see the other branch code quality also. But when you are using the free tier, right? So we can just see the master code only. Okay, so here they are
Mhm.
saying like right, so this is here it is like the branch is uh, yeah, so the launch darkly. Okay, but from the free tier version we can just only see the master branch. Okay, so in this scenario maybe what we can do is like I will update like this is the master branch something. uh, I think here we can override the property here. Sonar dot branch name equal to master. Because currently, right, our latest code is there in the launch darkly branch only. So you got it, Amos. So for example, the last time when we are doing the launch darkly demo, right? So from the
Mhm.
master branch, they had some other code. Okay, but so we are keeping the
Oh,
changes in the launch darkly only. Okay, so
we
whenever
updated
we,
the
yeah,
code directly in the
yeah,
launch directly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So whenever doing this one, so it will be updating it like launch darkly. So that's why we are not able to see here. So that what I'm doing like the by default it will come like launch darkly, right? Instead, I will update like master here so that we can be see the status in the master branch in the portal here. You
Okay.
got it right. I think the property name is this one, I guess. Sonar branch dot target. uh, what are the sonar dot branch. Okay,
Sonar dot branch dot name.
yeah, I think we will try to use all the things because we have less time only, right? So we will try to use all the configuration. So if it is the which one it is correct, so it can take sonar dot branch dot name, but maybe any one could be correct, Amos. Okay,
Okay.
but we have some time constraint, right? So that's why I'm just keeping everything. uh, And also, Mebrat and Amos, so thanking you for joining the class and then the active participation. And so it was very nice working with you all. Okay, maybe yeah,
Yeah,
if you have,
thank you so much
yeah,
for explaining and going some of the
yeah,
topics more elaborate.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Amos. Yeah,
We'll,
thank you,
we'll
Mebrat.
be in touch.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
All right. Okay.
Sure, thank you. Good night.
So Mebrat, I don't know maybe whether I can cover you related to the DB automation, right? So maybe you can. So for example, you need the Redgate, right? So you can just research on that. Maybe I also will research on it, and then I will send some useful links. Maybe the otherwise, right, the concept and all will be same only. Like we are integrating the Sonar Cloud, right?
Today is the last day?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, then I will send you.
Yeah, yeah, sure, Mebrat. But currently, you need to relate it to the Redgate only. You have decided, right? For the DB automation, the Redgate tool only you
Yeah,
have
but
finalized.
for this automation, did we cover the automation part of the DevOps also?
Sorry, come again, my bro.
No, I said the automation part. Did we cover
Yeah, the automation
DevOps?
means the automation means everything, right? So here we are seeing the build automation and deployment. So everything, right? So this is what automation. It's nothing other than that, my bro. But even we have
All
created
right.
the Terraform and then ARM templates, right, for the resource creation, the infra resource
Mhm.
creation. So that's also one of the automation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if I have doubts, I will send you email.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah, yeah,
In
sure.
Salman.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Maybe
so
yeah,
much.
yeah. Currently, so the last week and all, I don't have any time on that. But yeah, I will definitely research on the Redgate one, and then I will send some useful links to you.
Please, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But you have purchased the license, everything, Mebrot, for the Redgate.
Yeah, for my kids, yeah. We have the company, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay,
And also, I already installed local, in my local,
okay.
the company, computer. Also, yeah, with incorporating with SSMS
Okay,
18.k and also Visual Studio 2017 and Git. So
okay,
all needs to be installed
okay, my friend. Yeah,
with Git. Yeah.
okay. So I think if it is not working right, so what we can do is like maybe we will delete the existing master branch, and then we will create the new master branch from the launch darkly the branch Amazon member. Okay, so if
Mhm.
the whatever the property we said that is not, if it is not working, so we will try that approach.
Okay. Do you have the question dump all those things for the
I
certifications
yeah,
in
I
browser?
don't have almost. I think definitely. I think maybe Daniel will help you on that. So I don't have
Okay,
any.
I'll send some email to him.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we will just. Okay, I think we are seeing something, right? Yeah, this time it is working. Okay. So the quality gate we didn't configure it, but the findings, right? The findings 1.2K and then the coverage. So there are 3% of the duplication, and
Okay.
so here the failed. Okay, the launch darkly. This is the first time analysis, right? Okay, I think here the UI has changed something. Yeah, I think coverage here nothing is there. Okay, and maybe 1 minute.
So what is it? What is it? Findings is 1.2K.
So I think mostly the bugs and yeah, so the bugs and vulnerabilities, something. Yeah, the code smells. Okay, I think here we can see, right? So for example, so some issues and all, it will be reported under the bug. So for example, I am just selecting the, I'm just clicking on it, and inside that, I think this EUI is something new.
So now this is from the master, right? So it is
No, it is we just
okay.
renamed the launch darkly to master branch, but still the code is like a launch darkly code only. But we updated like this is the master branch. We just overrated the branch name, right? So that's why. So for example, I'm just opening the bug details. So all the hundreds will be displayed here. So for example, add a description to this table. So and then add either an item or a scope attribute to this th tag. So for example, this is the table header tag, right? So the SonarQube is saying like we need to add something ID or class something we have to be added. So this will be comes under the I think HTML. Okay, these are under the HTML.
Right.
So I think for example here you can filter the language also. So for example, if you just want the C sharp, okay. So I am just selected the C sharp, right? Use the return value of method to list something. I think here, right? I think they are saying like use the return value of method to list. I think they are asking something. Did you understood, Amos? Because use the
Return value of method.
tool list. But I don't know what they are trying to say here. But we are already using, right? The tool list only they are using it.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't see.
Okay.
And then finally they are returning the view.
Yeah.
That's what the action result
Oh.
is doing.
Okay. Yeah. So otherwise, yeah, I think they have to. They are just adding something, but they are not at all using, right? The view means. The HTML, right? The view it will go. I don't know. Maybe what they are doing it here. Um, yeah, I think mostly it's not finding any other issues. Almost, I think they are just. But here also, right? Why this is an issue? So I think here also we can understood. Like when the call to a function doesn't have any side effects, what is the point of making call? The results are ignored. In such cases, either the function call is useless or should be dropped or the source code doesn't behave as expected. I think this call, right, I think we are not at all using anywhere. We are not assigning the value to any of the variable, and then the variable we are using any subsequent lines. Okay. Because yeah, this line is it's saying like it is not at all useful, then why we are using it. I think that's what I am able to understood, Amos.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I know what it is doing now.
Yeah, so for example, right, when the call to a function doesn't have any side effects, because right, this is something unwanted line only, because we are okay. Maybe if it is something like maybe if you're inserting means it is fine, but we are just retrieving some results, right, from the products database table. We are just retrieving something, okay, but we are not at all using anywhere.
Yeah, it's not assigned to any variable or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah. That's why they are saying like it doesn't have any side effects, so that we can be
Mm-hmm.
ignore, or maybe we are forget to assign some value. So that's what it is showing like some.
Complaining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and similar like maybe we can go to any one of the C sharp. Okay, here it is saying like the 11, right? I think the unexpected duplicate height. I think maybe the two property like a height something. So here also they are mentioning the height, and yeah, here also mentioning the height, right? So it is something
Mm-hmm.
duplicate. So which one we have to follow? So these are all the code quality issues it will report, Amos. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and then, but anyway, the developer and all, they will be very worried on this tool, Amos. But it's very, very hard to work with because to make it cleaner, right? It is very, very tough actually.
Right.
The
Mm,
developer life and all. And then, right? So here it will show like the duplicate also. So for example, when you're going to the duplicates, it will show like uh, the duplicated lines 100 percentage. Uh, So for example, this line may be used in the multiple places. Okay, okay. This is the not covered by test. So for example, we need to write the unit test cases also, right? So in this line is,
mm-hmm.
this function is not covered in any of the unit test case. So that's what it's showing. Okay. So
Okay.
for the particular line and all, not at all this one. And then duplication lines. Okay. This one not covered by test. There are 5 code smell on this line. I think within the same line there are 5 code smells and not covered by test something. Yes, I think the duplicated line 100 percentage. Maybe we will be having the same exact file maybe. Okay, so for example, app insights.js. I think where it is duplicated. Okay, the duplicated lines 33. I think the total line itself duplicate blocks to. Uh, I think the somewhere it is duplicated, almost. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, with compared to other files, right? Somewhere it is
Mm-hmm.
duplicated. That's why it's complaining like we have to create as the reusable function or something.
Like
So,
an object itself.
yeah, yeah. So that one also it will show, and then yeah, and then the security point of view, the one or two security hotspots. Uh, I think the denial of service. Make sure that executing this OS command is safe here. Okay, I think which one we are, the cp dot execute the node
Mm.
root level, we are modifying something, right? The download or something. So
Yeah,
this
I don't know
is,
why they will execute something from here.
yeah, I think the node command they're executing from the, this is the JS file only. Within the JavaScript they are
Mm-hmm.
running some node command. At the root level they are downloading something. Okay, so that is why they are saying like using shell interpreter when executing OS commands is securely sensitive. But here they are just doing from the code itself, right? So that's why they are showing like one of the security one. And then denial of service, so make sure the rejects used here, which is vulnerable super linear runtime due to backtracking cannot lead to denial of service. I think here, yeah, I think there is some rejects pattern, right? I think they are
Mm-hmm.
saying there is some possibilities for the denial of service error. Okay, I think maybe here we can see the all the maybe issues description, maybe how, maybe the details, the recommended practices. So everything they will we can find the documentation also here, Amos.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, but based on the file extension, right, it can detect, for example, if it is a C# file means the extension will have the CS file, Java means dot Java, JavaScript means .js. So similar way, it will find the particular file, and then based on the rule, it will apply the rules also. So for example, so here the language, right? So it will detect automatically. So we don't need to do anything. For example, even in our pipeline also, right? We are not specifying like this is the .NET project or something. Okay, we are just provided the source code path, and when they are analyzing it, it can know that. So based on the extension, file extension, it will find that.
Okay.
Okay, maybe you can just try to configure by your own, so that you will get some understanding also. But yeah, maybe when you are when we are using this maybe the more than 1 week, right? So you will be more familiar with this tool. But nothing is wrong. The more about the filtering, so those things only. It's nothing different.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Amos. Okay, my brother.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Selvan.
Yeah.
Talk to you
Thank
then.
you, Amos. Yeah.